Good evening and welcome to our performance management class this evening. Today, we will be looking at part 2 of our working capital management. Okay, if it is possible, you can on your video so that I can see you. I want to see all of you people. So if you can on your video so that I can see you, I will be very glad. So please do me that favor on your video so that I can see every one of you. All right, now, thank you so much. Now let's look at part 2 of our working capital management. At the end of this topic, you will understand inventory management. Then you will understand how to manage receivables and payables. Then you will understand the models involved in managing cash. If you recall in part 1 of working capital management, we looked at something called the working capital cycle. And the working capital element, we look at the cash operating cycle. We looked at some of the ratios that are used in calculating working capital. Then we looked at something called over trading. Please, everybody should mute himself or herself so that we won't be hearing some noise. Thank you. Now, today we'll be looking at part 2, which is further aspect of working capital. Now, this chapter or this topic forms a big deal of your syllabus. So one of the compulsory questions could come out from working capital management. Now let's look at management of inventory. You know, working capital elements include inventory. We also have receivables and payables. Then we have cash. So we are taking these one at a time. If you can on your video, once again, I would like to see you. Inventory management. Material purchase quantities. Now we're looking at something called the economic order quantity. Many companies, particularly the manufacturing companies and the retailing companies, might hold large amounts of inventory. For example, they may hold large amounts of raw material, large amounts of work in progress, and large amounts of finished goods. Why do they usually hold this large amount of inventory? Because they want to meet customers' demand as soon as it arises. So it means that when the customer asks for a particular product, they don't want to hear, I don't have it. Or the usual excuse people say, let me go and get it in the packing store or in the warehouse. So they want you to give it to them when they ask. And so if customer asks and you say that you don't have, you've run the risk of stock out, and the customer may go to your competitor to buy the product. So you see that companies hold materials, finished goods, because they want to avoid stock out. Okay, now there are costs that are associated with holding the materials in your hand. So what are some of those costs of holding inventory? It includes the purchase price of the inventory. So when you go to your supplier to supply your goods, let's say you are dealers of a particular brand of maybe soft drinks or maybe alcohol, and you purchase that soft drink, the cost price of that inventory is part of holding the stock, because when you buy the stock is in your hand. You have you are holding the stock. So when you buy the stock, it means the stock is in your hand, you are holding it, and so that's holding cost. The purchase price is there. Then there is something called reorder costs. So it means that for you to keep this stock of your products always available, you have to order and reorder. So these reorder costs are the cost of making orders to purchase a quantity of a material item from the supplier. Now, some of these costs that are included in the reorder cost includes cost of delivery of the purchased items, the cost associated with placing the order, such as the cost of telephone calls. Then we also have the cost associated with checking the inventory after delivery from the supplier. So it means that if you have to bring the goods here, they may need to offload it. Of course, the loading and offloading is part of the cost. Then there's something called sorting of the cost, quality control checks. They check it, and the cost involved there is also associated with it. Then there is called the batch up setup cost if the inventory is produced internally. Then we have holding costs, inventory holding costs, cost of capital tied up, insurance costs. So you need to insure your goods, the cost of warehousing. Then if there is theft or obsolescence or deterioration, okay, obsolescence means that perhaps the product has expired. Maybe it's drinks and it has near the expiring date, or it has expired. So you may have to throw them away, or maybe the product is rotting, deterioration, or it may be broken in the case of bottles and all that, or theft. The cost of theft is also associated with holding the cost. So you can see that holding of these items is involved, its cost is involved. Now, what about shortage cost? Now, when you tell your client that I don't have this product, you have incurred shortage cost. Now you have loss of profit on sale. So because you would have lost selling that product, you've lost profit. Now the person would have gone to somewhere else to buy it. You would likely not see the person again. The person will want to go to your competitor. So you lost of profit due to loss of customers' goodwill, and also cost due to production shortage, because you have raw material shortage. There may be a shortage of production due to shortage of raw material. So you see, investing in inventory is costly. Though it is good to have products, it's good to have inventory, but you need to count the cost. Capital is tied up in inventory, and the capital investment has a cost. Let's see some example of holding inventory. Look at this example here. A company holds between 0 units and 1,000 units of an item of material that costs 1,000 naira per unit to purchase. Okay, let's put a name to it. Let's say these are mineral soft drinks. So it means that the company holds between 0 units, that means there is nothing in the warehouse or the store, to 10,000 units of an item. That means the highest item that they can receive is about 10,000 units. So the company holds between those two quantities to do business. And it is 1,000 naira per unit to purchase. The cost of the materials held in the store will therefore vary between 0 naira when they have 0 stock and 10 million naira when you are valuing them at 1,000 naira each. If the demand for the inventory is constant throughout the year, that means what customer is demanding is fairly constant, it's average. That means the average cost of whole of the inventory, the average cost of the inventory will be half of the maximum stock. So half of the maximum stock is the average. How do we know half is the average? If you look at the maximum stock is 1,000 units, the minimum stock is 0 units. So what you do here is you say 0 plus 10,000 units will give you 10,000. Divide by 2, that gives you 5,000. Multiplied by 1,000 naira gives you 5 million naira. That is the average cost of holding of the inventory. This inventory must be financed, and it is usual to assume that it should be financed by borrowing. And when you finance it by borrowing, you have to pay interest costs. Now, if the interest cost of holding the inventory is 5% per year, the cost per holding of the inventory will therefore be 5% of 5 million, which is 250,000. So you see, we have the average cost of the products. Now this is the holding cost. There will also be something called running expenses incurred in actually holding the inventory. So now we've talked about the cost of the item, talked about holding costs. Now these ones are also other running expenses such as warehousing, the rental of warehouse, wages and salaries of warehouse staff, and also a distinction can be made between variable inventory holding and fixed inventory costs. And so there is going to be cost involved in holding and carrying this inventory. Trade-off. Now, there's something called holding costs and ordering costs, and there's going to be a trade-off. Now, what is that trade-off? Let's look at this example and illustrate what this trade-off means. A company requires 12,000 units of a certain component every year. 12,000. Demand for the component is constant. This condition means that the average inventory is half of the maximum as long as there is no safety stock. So what it means is that if 12,000 units is what the company needs every year, average is 6,000 naira. 6,000 units rather. Now the company can decide on the number it orders, and as they decide on that, it will affect the holding costs and the ordering costs. So the holding cost is the cost that you incur when you purchased the items. See, the item left your hands or leaves your hand. The ordering cost is the cost you incur before the item gets to you. Once the item gets to you, you are holding it, then that's the holding cost. Now let's look at this situation here. If we use Q as our order size and D as our annual demand here is 12,000 units. The order size, we now have 3 order sizes. If we decide that we are going to be ordering 12,000 units each order, then it means that your average inventory is going to be 6,000 naira. And that means for the year, you are going to make just one order because your annual demand is 12,000. So you're going to make just one order for the whole year. If you decide that you are going to be making orders 6,000 units per order, of course, it means you're going to make 2 orders to meet 12,000. And if 6,000 is your order size, it means your average inventory will be half of 6,000, which is 3,000. If you decide to make 3,000 units every order, you are going to make 4 orders. So forgive that 3,000 here. Forgive the 3 that is put here. You are going to make 4 orders. If you are making 4,000 units each order, it means you are going to get 3 orders. And your average will be 2,000 per order. Now the average inventory falls. See, you see now, the average inventory falls as the order size falls. So you see from 12,000, when it falls to 6,000, it means that the average inventory has fallen from 6,000 to 3,000. However, smaller orders mean making smaller orders means you have to request them more frequently. So you see here now that when you reduce your order from 12 to 6, you have to increase the number of orders. When it is reduced to 3,000 units, you see you have to increase your number of orders to 4. And so a business will be concerned with minimizing its costs. So you see here that if you decide to reduce the number of orders, you will be reducing your ordering costs. But what about the holding cost? You'll be increasing your holding cost because you'll be holding more inventory. But if you decide to reduce your inventory costs or your holding costs, you will need to increase your order cost because you'll be making orders more frequently. And so there will be a need for trade-off between the holding costs and the ordering costs so that you don't make too much cost in either of them. And so that's where the economic order quantity comes in place. The economic order quantity, also called the EOQ, is used to calculate the quantity of inventory to order from your supplier, such that each time you make this order, you are minimizing your ordering costs and your holding costs. You are reducing this cost to the barest minimum. Now, what are some of the assumptions of the EOQ? Assumption here one is there is no bulk purchase discount for making orders in large sizes. All units purchased for each item are of the same price. So whether you are purchasing 12,000 units, you're not going to be getting a price reduction than somebody purchasing 6,000 units or somebody purchasing 3,000. All of them is the same price. Implication, order size does not affect the total annual purchase cost of the item. So it means that if I'm making 12,000 orders at once, the annual purchase will still be the same. Doesn't affect it. If I'm making 6,000 orders each time and I make twice, the annual orders of 12,000 and the cost will not be affected. If I'm making 3,000 quantities each time I'm making an order and I do it 4 times, I'm still going to get the same annual purchase cost. And so you see here that the purchase price can be ignored using this assumption because it does not change anything. So that's one of the things about decision making. Any variable that does not affect the decision can be ignored. So here, purchase price will not be part of the formula we are going to be using, can be ignored. Okay, the second assumption, the order lead time, which is the time between placing an order and receiving the delivery from the supplier, is constant and known. It means that I know that if I place an order today, in 3 days' time, the order will come. And it is constant, it does not change. You will not place an order today and they bring it tomorrow, they will bring it in 3 days' time. They will not delay your order and bring it the 4th day. You know that and you are keeping it constant and you are taking advantage of that. Implication, delivery of a new order is always timed to coincide with running out of inventory so that the maximum inventory is the order size. So it means that your annual demand, you know your demand and you know how you are depleting it. You are depleting it in such a way that you know when your stock will run out and you know when you are going to place your order and you know the time you are going to get your order, such that when your order is just landing, that is when your stock is depleting. And so what you'll be having in your stock is the maximum inventory, which is the order you just make. Well, all these are unrealistic assumptions, but we have to use it for the sake of understanding this topic. So there is no risk of being out of stock. Shortage stock, then shortage cost can also be ignored. So you don't have stock out cost. And so in our formula, shortage cost will be ignored. Third assumption, annual demand for the item is constant throughout the year. What it means is that you are demanding 12,000 units for the year, means that 1,000 units for each month is constant throughout the year. And so the average inventory is the order size divided by 2 because the maximum inventory is Q. So we get that. So we are going to derive the EOQ. So as a result of simplifying the assumptions, the relevant cost we are looking at here is the annual holding cost per item per annum and the annual ordering cost. If the prices of the material is the same, no matter what size of the purchase order quantity that minimizes total cost is the quantity at which ordering costs plus holding costs are minimized. So we are looking at 2 costs here, ordering cost, holding cost. How can we minimize this cost and put them in such a way that they are at the lowest cost? That is where we will now look at the EOQ model. The EOQ model, as we know, is Q equal to square root or square root of 2 COD divided by CH, where the quantity purchased in each order to minimize cost is the Q. The CO is the cost per order, that's the fixed cost per order. And the CH is the cost of holding an item of inventory per annum. And D is the annual demand. Just know also that in your EOQ formula, your total ordering cost must be equal to your holding cost for it to be minimum. So we're now going to look at an example here of economic order quantity. Now, a company uses 120,000 units of material X each year, which costs 300 naira for each unit. That's the purchase price. Of course, we are going to ignore this purchase price because no matter how many quantity you order, this price will not change. The cost of placing an order is 6,500 naira. So this is relevant. For each order you make, you must spend 6,500. So that means if you're making a particular order to fill this 120,000, we don't know how many orders you're going to make, but split them. Each time you split, you're making 6,500. The annual cost of holding inventory is 10% of the purchase price of the unit. So it means that we check 10% of 300 naira, that's going to give me 30 naira. So 30 naira is the holding cost for one unit. So if you have 120,000 naira, 20,000 units, you want to get the holding cost, means that 10% of 30 naira times 120,000 units will give you the total holding cost. Ordering cost is going to give you 6,500 for each order. We don't know how many you are taking per order. Okay, that's what we want to find out. The economic order quantity, okay, analyze that. So look at this formula. 2 multiplied by CO times D all over CH, the square root of all these gives you 7,211.1 units. So we can say it's 7,202 or 201. This is the number of quantities you are going to take per order. It means that each time you make an order, this is what gives you. Now, let us see the holding cost and the annual holding cost and the annual ordering cost. And let's see something that we can learn from this. Now, look at this now. If we are to order 7,211.1 units, your number of orders will be how many? It means that if you have 120,000 divided by 7,211.1, it means you're going to be making 16.64 orders throughout the year. If you multiply that by 6,500 per order, you're going to be getting 108,666 naira for your ordering costs. Now looking at holding costs. Holding costs, if you are using 7,211.1, that's the quantity, that's your maximum quantity, and means that you go from 0 to that quantity. Your average stock will be divided by 2, which will give you 3,605.55. When you multiply that by 30 naira, which is the cost of holding one item, it gives you 108.66. That is also your holding cost. Now, can you notice something here? Your ordering cost and your holding cost gives you the same figure. So whenever your ordering cost and your holding cost gives you exactly the same figure, that is the minimum cost using the EOQ. And so when you add them together here, you have 216,332. That is the total annual cost that is minimized by the EOQ. If you have to bring the purchase price is you are buying 120,000 units. Each of them is 300 naira. It means you are spending 36 million. So it means your total annual cost will be your purchase price plus your ordering cost plus your holding cost, all giving you 36,216,332. That is your total annual cost. So we learned here that the economic order quantity is the quantity where the ordering cost is equal to the holding cost. So the costs are minimized are often very small compared to the purchase price in the model. Now we said the purchase price is irrelevant because it does not affect the order size when the annual demand is constant. Okay, now we said this assumption is not always occurring because sometimes some people want to hold safety inventory because they cannot predict what can happen. You know, some of the limitations of this EOQ model is that you envisage that your demand is constant, the rate of depletion is constant, you know your lead time, and it is constant and known. Sometimes it may not happen that way. And so some people want to avoid that risk of maybe I place order today, it doesn't come when because of some unforeseen occurrence, and they decide to make more order than the EOQ. Also, it's not possible that price will always remain the same irrespective of the order. Let me use an example, data. You might buy a data and you might buy 3,000 naira, might give you 10 gig. And if you buy 3,000 naira for 10 gig, it means you are spending 300 naira per gig. Another person might be buying might be buying 10,000 naira for 40 gig and be spending 250 naira per gig. And that's the discount. Somebody might be buying 60 gig for 13,000 naira. So 13,000 divided by 60, you are getting, let's say 62, 13,000 divided by 62 gig, or let's say 60 gig for, let's say, 12,000. That is 200 naira. So you see here, somebody spending 300 naira per gig when he's buying 10 gig, 3,000. Another person spending 250 per gig, buying 40 gig for 10,000 naira. Another person spends 200 naira per gig, buying 60 gig for 12,000 naira. So you see, as you are buying more, you are getting discount for bulk purchase. So you see here that sometimes the EOQ may not always give you the best optimal price. When EOQ formula is used to calculate the purchase quantity, it is assumed that the purchase cost per unit of material is constant regardless of the quantity. But if the supplier offers a discount on the purchase price, then the purchase price will become relevant. So you see, I've used an example of data to show you how purchase price is relevant. But if I buy, like, let me tell you something now. If I buy 40 gig at 10,000 naira, it gives me 250 naira, right? And somebody who decides to buy 2 gig, 500 naira. So 500 divided by 2 is still 250 naira. Which one would you rather want to buy? Okay, you see, 40 gig is for 1 month, 2 gig is for 2 days. Somebody will decide to buy 2 gig every purchase. But you know, the price is irrelevant because by the time you spent 40 gig, you would have spent 10,000 naira. But you now see that you'll be considering how much notification amounts you'll be spending, how much on USSD and all that. All these are also prices of things you need to consider, like ordering costs, holding costs. There is a risk that when you buy this 40 gig all at once, you might be tempted to download, like it happened to me. And instead of using it for 1 month, you are using it for 3 weeks. Whereas when you do 2 gig in 2 days, you know that you have restricted yourself to 1 gig a day. The second day, the 2 gig has finished, you replace it, and you know that at 30 days, you would have bought 30 gig, spending how much? 7,500. So you see that they are trying to be economical. So now, what if, as I gave the illustration here, the purchase price reduces because of bulk discount? Now, purchase price becomes relevant. So what do? It's either we maintain our economic order quantity, or we try to see what would happen when we get a price discount. And so we decide which one should we use. Well, I use this kind of options a lot. That's why I bring the example of the data, because I use that on data to see which quantity of data I would use in my online classes like this. All right, let's look at the example here. Optimum order quantity with price discount. The company uses 120,000 units of material X each year, which costs 300 naira for each unit. Now, this is the same question. Now, the part I want to read now is the supplier offers a discount of 5 naira per unit for orders of 10,000 units or more. So it means that if you are looking at EOQ 7,201, you are still going to be paying 300 naira. But the moment you buy 10,000 units, they will give you at 395. So you need to check. Sometimes you'll be telling yourself, what's 5 naira? What's 5 naira? By the time you do the calculation, you will know what 5 naira goes. Like the way I say about data, somebody is buying 300 naira per data, you are buying 250. Somebody will not know that that 50 naira goes a long way to help you to reduce your costs because you are buying in bulk. All right, let's see. EOQ versus bulk. 7,211.1 unit versus 10,000 naira. Let us see the annual ordering cost. Like we said in the EOQ, it's going to be 108.0 108,166. Let's look at the discount, the bulk purchase. Since you are making 10,000 units each time, if you divide 10,000 by 120, that will give you 12 naira, 12 units, 12 orders in a year. 12 orders multiplied by 6,500 per order gives you 78,000. Looking at holding costs here, holding costs, we said here in EOQ, ordering costs and holding costs are the same. But let's look at the holding cost for the 10,000 units. Now, the average is going to be half of that, 10,000 divided by 2, which is 5,000. 5,000 times 30 gives you 150,000. Now, hold on a moment. When you add your ordering cost to your holding cost, EOQ gives you the minimum. So you see here, this 216,332 is smaller than this 228,000. But the story does not end there. We know that when you use your EOQ, you have the cheapest ordering and holding costs. But now, let the purchase cost for the year be the deciding factor. Now let's look at the purchase cost for the year. If you look at the purchase cost for 12, when you're using EOQ, you know you are going to still spend 120,000 units, and you are buying it at 300 naira, going to give it at 6 million. But now there is a discount when you buy at bulk purchase, 120,000 units at 395. Now, this is the decider. Will the discount be enough to compensate for the difference in the ordering and the holding cost? Let's see the total. Wow. So you see now that buying at discount gives you a lesser total cost than buying at the EOQ. So you see here, it's just like comparing somebody buying 10 gig for 3,000 for 1 month, and you still need to, when the person finishes it, by the time he spends 40 gig, that means he would have made 4 times order. 3,000 times 4, you would have spent 12,000 naira. Whereas this person that bought 40 gig once and spent 10,000 naira is getting a cheaper cost, because he spent 10,000 naira, so that person is spending 12,000 naira. Or somebody who is buying a data 2 gig in 2 days, 500 naira. By the time you spend 1 month, you are spending 30 gig, you are spending 7,500. And somebody is spending 3,000 naira for 10 gig, 30 gig is 9,000. So you see here that buying bulk purchase when the price discount is given to you really makes sense. But you must check it out like this to see if the discount is worth the total cost. Now, another example. A company uses 120,000 units of material X each year, and now it costs you 3 naira per unit before discount. So when there is no discount, you are paying 3 naira. The cost of making an order is now 605 per order. The annual cost of holding the inventory is 10% of the purchase cost, which is, 10% of 3 naira. Wow, is 30 kobo. The supplier offers a discount of 10 kobo per unit for orders of 25,000 units up to 40,000 units, and a discount of 20 kobo for orders of 40,000 units or more. Find the quantity that will minimize total cost. What's the first thing to do? First is to look for EOQ. When we did our EOQ, we found out that our economic order quantity is 22,000 units. So now we are stuck with this. If you buy 22,000 units, you'll be buying it at how much? At 3 naira. But if you decide to buy 25,000 units, you will buy it at 10 kobo cheaper. That means 3 minus 0.1. It means you buy it at 2 naira 90 kobo. If you decide to buy 40,000 units, you are going to buy it at 2 naira 80 kobo. So which will you want to buy? Will you want to buy at 22,000 units or 25,000 units or 40,000 units? Which one of them will minimize total cost? Well, after today's class, you will want to be applying the thing I did here in maybe other aspects, like I've raised the issue of data, especially if you're attending Zoom class like this, when you have to spend data, you now look for cheaper ways to minimize your costs. All right, now you have three decisions to make. You have, okay, let me leave it like this. You have 22,000 units from EOQ, 25,000 units for one of the first discount offers, and 40,000 for the second discount level. Now, when you add your annual cost, purchasing cost, you have 360 naira when you multiply by 120. But when the discount is 10 naira, which means you are buying at 2 naira 90 kobo, your annual purchase is 348. At 20 kobo discount, your annual purchase is 336. And that's cool. When you're looking at the ordering costs for the 22 units, 22,000 units, you see your ordering cost and your holding cost are the same. If you add these two together, you have 6,600. This will always be higher than the sum of these two. So if you have 2,904 plus 3,625, let me add them together. 2,904 plus 3,625, it will give you 6,529, which is, wow, 6,529, which seems to be lower than 6,600. Or did I do this thing well? Yeah, I did. Then the other one is 1,815 plus 5,600 gives you 7,415. So you see here that your economic order quantity here did not give you the minimum cost. Did not give you the minimum cost. Now let's see here. When you add these three costs together, you find out that ordering at 40,000 units is better because you minimize your total cost. So you see, that is why some people will want to buy like data, high data. So if you are somebody who is a heavy data user just like me, you might need to reevaluate how many gigabytes you use in a year and see how you can make good bargain price using this model. So you see here, it pays you to buy at 40,000 units. But of course, you still need to consider other things here. We said ordering cost and holding cost is higher than the EOQ, but if we ignore shortage cost because it's not going to happen because you bought higher purchase. But sometimes you may need to think about if you are buying these things too high, too too much, there is a risk of obsolescence because stock is in your hands, risk of obsolescence, risk of spoilage, deterioration, risk of theft. So you need to consider all of these, even though you see that you are going to get higher bargain in total cost. All right, so we've seen how we manage our stock. We have seen how to manage stock using the economic order quantity model, and then we've seen discount for discount, taking advantage of discount because of bulk purchase. Let us look at something called reorder level and buffer stock. So far, it has been assumed that when an item of material is purchased from a supplier, the delivery from the supplier will happen immediately. Okay, because you ordered when your stock was almost zero, and the delivery man brings it immediately when your stock was being depleted. And so you say, okay, this stock came almost immediately and you are happy. In practice, there is likelihood that there is uncertainty as to when this order is going to come. And so you want to avoid the risk of running out of stock before your stock comes. For this reason, there is something called lead time, supply lead time. I mentioned it is that this is the period between when you place a new order and when the order arrives. Now, the length of this supply lead time might be uncertain. It could be several days, it could be weeks, or even months. It is not certain. Then also, there is something called daily or weekly usage of the material, which is also not constant. So something is happening here. You are depleting your items at a particular rate. And so let's say, for example, you have 12,000 units and you are depleting each day, you are depleting each day 3,000 units. It means that it will take you 4 days for your stock to run out. Now, if your supply lead time is less than 4 days, it means if you place an order, it will come in less than 4 days. So it means that you will not run out of stock. But let's say it's going to come in the 5th day. You would have run out of stock before your inventory comes. So there's a need for you to know when to place this order so that you will not go out of stock and also you will not hold too much stock. Okay, so we need to find what we call the reorder level, the level at which you will need to place an order in order to avoid any stock. So, in the EOQ, our reorder level was at stock 0. But we say it doesn't happen like that in real life. So there must be a level we must have our stock up to when we place this order. Now, whether the inventory level for each item of material appear to be too high or too low, management is responsible for controlling it. So you don't want too low inventory, you don't want too high inventory. All right. In an inventory control system, if there is uncertainty about the length of the supply lead time and the demand during the lead time, there might be 3 warning levels for inventory to warn management that 1, this item should now be reordered, or that the inventory level is too high, or that the inventory level is getting dangerously low. So we want to avoid too high order and too low inventory, because if it is too low, you might go to stock out. If it is too high, you might be investing too much and stock costs money. All right, so the reorder level can be found using this formula. Demand for the material item per week times lead times in days. So if the supply lead time is uncertain and the demand during the lead time is also uncertain, there should be a safety level of inventory. So that means if they are uncertain, use your maximum demand for the material per day or per week multiplied by the maximum supply in lead time. What does that mean? It means that if you want to know the level at which to place your order, look at the demand that people have been making from you over the period. Can you find out a day you had the maximum? Use that maximum demand as, you just assume that, what if customers decide to make this demand every day at the maximum level? So that's what you're going to do. Then check when your lead time, when you ask for order to be sent to you, and they're not delayed, the maximum time they delayed. So multiply that maximum time in days, multiplied by the maximum demand. It will give you the figure, which is the level at which you hit that level, you will start placing an order. So it means that if you were doing it in Excel, let's assume that the reorder level is 25,000. If you are using that in Excel, and maybe each time you make your average usage happen to be like 2,000 or 2,000 units each day, maybe when your stock has reached 30,000 units, we're showing you the amber sign. You set its conditional formatting to set it at 30,000 units. It should be showing you amber sign that you should place an order soon when it is 25,000 units. Then when it gets to 25,000 units, it should give you the red sign, place an order. And by the time you place an order, immediately it went to green. So you see that all these things can be practicalized in real life. So let's look at safety inventory, which we call buffer stock or safety stock. The reorder level is set at maximum expected consumption of the material during the maximum lead time. Okay, this is more than the average usage during the supply lead time. As a result, more material is held than is needed on an average. So safety inventory is the average amount of inventory held in excess of the average requirement in order to remove the risk of stock out. So it means that if you want to know your safety inventory, look at your reorder level. We said your reorder level is you use the maximum demand per day with the maximum lead time, because it's uncertain. You don't know how your customer will be depleting your products. I don't know when the next order will come. So you use your maximum demand from the customer plus the maximum supply time from your suppliers to get your reorder level. Then bring the average usage. So you know that the average usage is perhaps 1,000 in a day, and you know that if you place an order, the average time is 2 days. That will be your average usage. If you remove your average usage, which is some normal usage, from your reorder level, the difference is your safety inventory level. It means the excess that you are holding so that you avoid the risk of stock out. That is your safety inventory. Now look at maximum inventory level. Maximum inventory level. A company will set a maximum level of inventory. So why are they setting this maximum level of inventory? Inventory held above the maximum would incur extra holding costs without adding any benefits to the company. And so there is a need for you to hold a maximum cost. The inventory level should never exceed that level. So it means that what you may be doing is that if you make an order and you have determined your maximum level, you might set something a conditional formatting in Excel that the level is getting high. Let's say you say 100,000 units is your maximum level, and it will be giving you warning sign between 90 to 100. So when the level hits 90, you know that you're not going to make any order. It's getting to 100, dangerously high. And you say that maybe your reorder level is maybe 40. When it gets to 50, it starts warning you. It's getting to reorder level. Getting to reorder level. Maybe your average usage and your average level perhaps is 20. So when you get to reorder level, you take drastic steps and it is going down, going down. When it gets to 20, which is your average level, and it gets below that, it starts showing you red again, because if nothing is done, your order is not back, then you might get stuck out. So that's when you start intensifying your calls. You start calling your supplier. What's happening to my product? What is happening? So they start telling you, please, we are going to send it. We are going to send it. We have some logistic problems and all that. So these are practical things you could do. So a company should set a maximum level so that it will not incur extra costs. The inventory level should never exceed the maximum level. If this happens, something unusual has happened either to the supply lead time or demand during the supply lead time. The company will investigate this and take action in perhaps adjusting their purchasing behavior. Your purchasing behavior is how much you are purchasing at each time. So you see here that, funny enough here, for somebody who is working as an inventory officer or even an internal auditor, this knowledge, this is a practical knowledge for you to hold so that to save management from making too much costs and also make the management from losing customers. When demand during the supply lead time is uncertain and the supply lead time is also uncertain, the maximum inventory level is found as follows. So here, you look at the reorder level and the reorder quantity. The reorder level plus your reorder quantity, you get something here. Then you less your minimum demand per day multiplied by your minimum lead time. So you see here that it's almost like safety stock. where we use reorder level, but we said minus your average. But now this time you want to get your maximum that you can have as your inventory level. Your reorder level plus the order quantity that you place. Then you are now assuming that if customers' demand is at the minimum and the supply time is minimum, they supply it in time, the maximum you could ever get is your reorder level plus your reorder quantity minus your minimal usage in minimal lead time. So the maximum level should occur at the time that a new delivery of item has been received from the supplier. The supply lead time is short, yes, and therefore there is still some units of inventory when the new delivery is received. So that shoots your inventory level to a particular level, and that's your maximum level. What about your minimum level? The minimum inventory level is the level that if it falls below that, that's dangerous. It's a warning level. It means that there could be stock out. How do you determine your minimum inventory level? You bring your reorder level, then you remove your average demand per week minus times average lead time. That will give you your minimum level. So it's good for you to know this formula if it means memorizing them, because nobody is going to give you this formula in exam. So you need to take your time to remember this formula. Write them down, write them over and over and over again until you remember this formula. And when you get to the exam hall, replicate these formulas. Let's look at this question here. A company uses material item BC667. That's the name of the material. The reorder quantity for this material is 12,000 units. What it means here is that if they are ordering or reordering, they are making 12,000 units in an order. There are some uncertainties about the length of the lead time. So they don't know how long it's going to take when they get these materials. So there's uncertainty about the lead time between ordering more materials and receiving delivery from the suppliers. There are also some variability in weekly demand for the item. So also it is not constant. So it means that the supply lead time average is 2.5. The maximum is 3 weeks and the minimum is 1 week. Okay. Now the question is, all right, this is the demand per week. Average demand from customers is 1,002. Maximum demand from customers is 1,005. Minimum demand is 800. Now, what is the reorder level? Your reorder level would be your maximum demand per day, which is 1,500, multiplied by the maximum lead time, 3 weeks. So it means when you multiply, you get 4,500. So that is your reorder level. What it means is that when your level drops to 4,500 units, that is the time you must place this order of 12,000 units. So as at the time your order drops to 4,500, you place 12,000 units. So it means that so that this thing will not catch you unawares, when your order level maybe is 6,000, start setting it so that it's giving you warning. It's getting to your reorder level, keep watching it. 6,000. See now, your customers are giving you average of 1-2. So you see 6,000. The next day, customers demand 1-2. And you see here that, wow, 4,800 is remaining. Do not wait until the customers order again. Or maybe you are 6,000 units and that day the customer ordered 1,500. Wow, you see that 1,500 from 6,000 gives you 4,500. So you say, oh, the next day when so you see now that when your closing stock happens to be 6,000, you tell yourself the next day I am making an order. If I'm not making an order today, I'm making an order the next day. And so you see here that the reorder level will not, if you put a control, you find out that you will not forget to make an order when it is your reorder level. Now, what is your buffer stock? That's safety stock. We said it's going to be your reorder level, which is 4,500 units. Then you need to know your average usage or demand with the average lead time. Your average usage is 1-2. Average lead time is 2.5 weeks. So when you multiply, it gives you 3,000. That means if everything goes average, it means that when you place a new order at stock 4,500 units and the normalcy continues, it means that by the time you would have finished using 3,000 units, which is this what you minus, and you have 1,005. As at when your stock level drops to 1,005, that is when a new stock would have been arriving. So you are saying, oh, my 1,500 is my safety stock, because if things goes abnormal, more than the average, you still fall back on this 1,500 that you kept as buffer stock. What is your maximum level? We say your maximum level is going to be the reorder level 4.5 plus the quantity you're ordering at the reorder level, 12,000. Then you now say that, what if things goes on a minimum, that customers are not coming that much, 800, and your supplier, when you put an order for 12,000 and they bring it in 1 week, and during that 1 week, your customers have used 800 units. So 800 times 1 is 800, giving you 15,700. So 15,700 will be the maximum inventory that you should have. What about your minimum inventory? Your minimum inventory here now is your buffer stock. So it means that if anything goes below your buffer stock, wow, it's dangerous, because anything could happen. The average lead time change, become more higher than average, and something else could happen. So your minimum level is your buffer stock quantity. I'll just talk briefly about just-in-time production and just-in-time purchase. Just-in-time management method came from Japanese in the 1970s. And now this is a radical approach to inventory management compared to what we are doing in EOQ and the reorder levels. Now, the principle of just-in-time is that they want to avoid waste. And they say inventory is wasteful. If you have more inventory, it adds no value to the company, but represents an expense because you have holding costs and ordering costs. And well, Ordering cost is not that wasteful because either way you must make cost in ordering. What about holding costs? For holding the thing for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, you're going to be paying warehousing, you're going to pay insurance, you're going to pay staff to keep looking at them. All these are expenses, but there is no benefit. Sometimes we are keeping to look after them might even be stealing from you. And so there is no immediate benefit. So there is no need to hold stock. That is what is being said. And so look at some of uh, the things they propose here, that in an ideal production system, there should be no inventory of finished goods. Items should be produced just in time to meet customers' orders and not before. So it means that um, just like a tailor will not want to hold stock and keep different clothes. You bring the clothes that you need, get the material to get your clothes ready just in time. So you don't keep stock. You know, there are some people who will just be advertising, showcasing products, but they don't have any stock. When you place your order, they get this thing somewhere and supply you without holding any stock. And so there should be no inventories of purchase material and components. Purchases should be delivered to external suppliers just in time when they need it for production. And so, in fact, there will be no need for warehousing, because warehousing is you have bought some stock and you're putting it for future use. But what you need now is delivered to you. What are the practical implications of just in time? It is important that items should be available when required. Finished goods must be available when customer order them. Raw materials and components must be supplied when they are needed for production. In practice, this means that production times must be very fast. If there is no inventory of finished goods, production has to be fast in order to meet new customers' order quickly. So your production is slow, that means you should have to hold stock then, because customers will not be patient with you. Production must be reliable. There must be no hold-ups in production, no stoppages, no bottlenecks, and there should be no poor quality of production, because if there's poor quality, we need to reject some items. And you know, sometimes because of rejecting of items, you may need to hold stock so that in case there is anything you need to reject, you need to use that to replace. So there should be good qualities, and deliveries from suppliers be reliable. So there's nothing like, I'm coming. Okay, your delivery must be quick because you want to do a just in time. So your suppliers must be very reliable, your production must be very fast, and your production must also be reliable. This is what is implied when you are doing a just in time. Just in time purchasing. Just in time depends for its success not only on high efficiency and high quality production, but also on efficient and reliable supply arrangement with key producers. So you see, your suppliers are your key. You must have concrete, reliable arrangements, just as you also have high efficient production for your customers. So for successful JAT purchasing, there must be an excellent relationship with your key suppliers. Collaborative long-term relationship will be established with major suppliers, and purchasing should not be based on selecting the lowest price offered by competing suppliers. So you must have a long-term relationship with the suppliers, even though you may see some other people giving at a very lower cost, but you have an established relationship with your key suppliers. And when that loyalty is done, when you ask them you need something, they will always supply you, even without you paying any money, because they know you're going to pay. By implementing a JIT system, an entity will be working with its key strategic suppliers to implement a manufacturing system that will reduce or eliminate inventories and work in progress, reduce order sizes, since your output is produced to meet specific demand, and ensures delivery arrive in the factory exactly at the time that they are needed. These cannot be overemphasized. So you see here, the overall emphasis of a JIT purchasing policy is on consistency and quality. Consistency here means that you have consistency in your lead supply. Lead time to supply is so fast. Lead time is giving out your product, your attending to your customers' demand is so fast. Quality is also not to be compromised. Then JET will be effective. In JET, don't look for the lowest purchase price possible, because when you get a purchase price very low, your quality might be compromised. Now let's look at problems with JIT. There might be several problems using JIT in practice. One, zero inventories cannot be achieved in some industries where customer demand cannot be predicted with certainty, and the production cycle is quite long. In this situation, it is necessary to hold some inventories of finished goods so that you do not run out of stock. Second, it might be difficult to arrange a reliable supply system with key suppliers, whereby suppliers are able to deliver materials exactly at the time required. So sometimes you might be having good suppliers, especially in Lagos, where the hold-up is terrible. You might run into a problem of delivery where the time is exact. But sometimes, they have all these delivery companies. But, the problem with Lagos hold-up is that sometimes you may need to now place your order in time. But if your order from your customers came late and you're telling your customers, okay, your customer told you, okay, by 9 o'clock, I need so and so to be done to me by 2 o'clock. And you call your suppliers at 9 o'clock that, please, I need this quantity of supplies. And that is a major period of hold up. You might find out that you might disappoint your customers. Now, if the EOQ model succeeds in minimizing total costs of holding costs and ordering costs, this suggests that with a JIT purchasing, ordering costs might be very high. So if EOQ is minimizing your ordering costs and your holding costs, for you to get JIT to work, your ordering cost might be very high because your holding cost is zero, because you don't hold anything. And when you don't hold anything, your ordering cost will be high. I said there's a trade-off. When you have a higher ordering cost, your holding cost will be low. When you have a low holding cost, your ordering cost will be high. So that's what is the problem with JIT. What have we discussed today? We've talked about management of inventories, and talked about the economic order quantity. We saw how we derived it, economic order quantity. Then we talked about that with economic order quantity, you will minimize the ordering and holding costs. But when we now look at discounts gotten from bulk purchase, that might even minimize total costs. Then we looked at stock levels. We looked at the reorder level. We look at the buffer stock. We look at the maximum level and the minimum level, and we saw their formulas. Then lastly, we looked at the just-in-time delivery of production. So all these are management of stock or inventory. So you either use your EOQ or you either look at bulk purchase. You need to know at what point you need to make an order, or if you want to do away with inventory all together, look at JIT. In our next class, we'll be looking at management of receivables and payables, and we'll also look at management of cash. Then that will be the end of working capital part 2. So I can tag this one as working capital management part 2A. In our next class, we'll be looking at working capital management part 2B, where we hope to bring this topic to a close. So once again, I say thank you so much for coming to class today, and feel free to watch this video again and learn from it. All right, so I want to take my leave now. Thank you once again and have a good night.